right, gentlemen, it is good to see your faces. Awesome to be catching up. I think we took a week off and kind of let the soap opera of the coaching carousel, NIL, the portal, Starocci making his announcement he's coming back. There's just been a lot of developments, literally by the second. Things are always changing. Um, so let's jump right into it. This Oklahoma State thing, it's a head scratcher. No matter how in the know you are, no matter how many people you talk to that, and I've talked to people very close to it as well as people that just are on Twitter talking shit. No matter how much you look at it, everybody's scratching their head like what the hell's going on, right? Like even the people that are the most intricate into it are just like what the hell's happening, right? So and Willie mentioned on his show, and he was talking with Fellers that it was kind of Coleman's thing, and then these allegations came up of money and taxes and this and that, and that's what kind of threw the monkey wrench into it. I don't know if the search firm that Oklahoma State supposedly hired, if they were part of it beforehand, or if they were before all those allegations came, or if that came after. So I'm not sure about that timeline, but I know that they have done they're really doing their due diligence with this. And originally for me, I'm like, all right, yeah, Coleman's going to be the next guy. He's brought in. John, mentions him during the press conference. Coleman has to do press with Chad, who's their head AD, afterwards. Like all these things are lining up. Obviously the allegations and things like that throw a monkey wrench into it, but I'm still thinking they're doing their due diligence because I know a couple of years ago their basketball team had some sort of NCAA violations, and so the athletic department is probably going to be on high alert when it comes to hiring and making changes and this, that, and whatever. But literally day by day, all these things are changing, right? Like we're hearing David Taylor, we're hearing other names in there. It was kind of, let's see if we can pull some of that Penn State juice to Stillwater, right? When they're looking at David Taylor, they're looking at Casey Cunningham as well. That was another name that was out there. There are other names of people that I know that are on the list, but for the sake of it, let's just focus on, the David Taylor of all of it. He loses at the trials, and that's when things become a little bit more of a thing. So day by day, second by second, things are happening, right? Like I'm getting messages and, texts and stuff like that about literally everything that is going on from all different angles and from all different people. So it's just like so wild to just kind of sit back and watch this, and that's my thing is like everyone is trying to be kind of the source in all of this, right? Not saying that I am like the source in all of this, but like I try and sit back and take in everybody's information because I don't have, I have access to, I will say it, I do have access to people at Oklahoma State, not so much in the David Taylor camp, right? So like I try to listen 10 times as much as I tweet anything out there. So like there's just so much that is literally happening day by day, second by second. So like as much as everybody is in the know and thinks they know, there's a curveball literally every single day. So it's just been very wild to kind of sit back and watch and hear what everyone is saying, whether it is, hey, David Taylor turned it down, or David Taylor's no longer in the mix, or Coleman's supposed to meet with the ADs, or the ADs flew to meet with David Taylor, and still like in State College, like all these things just keep floating around. I cannot remember a time where we had this much of a focus on a head coaching job, where there were this many irons in the fire of just like information of what everybody wants to know. And it's like super wild. What are some of the things that you guys are taking notice of, like with this entire situation? Like I said, like I'm getting texts and phone calls and things like that. And, talking to Willie and talking to people in Stillwater and talking to people that aren't even in Stillwater that are in the know. Like, what are you guys seeing on Twitter? What are you taking notice of the most that is kind of has you guys scratching your heads?
I think the biggest thing is just that there's so much random speculation, um, and it's hard to know how much of it's complete bullshit and how much of it is people actually having some insight into it. Um, Clearly, that we know that there's some people we skew towards the bullshit end of it just on principle and based off of um, their past reporting. But it's such a weird situation because everybody thought it was going one way, and then there's this drastic change to something that nobody expected, um, playing a pretty big role in it, and now we're kind of swinging back on the other side of the roller coaster to back to what we expected in the first place. So it's a weird roller coaster ride here.
I thought it was really strange how, I think that you talk about overthinking things, right? I think that if this David Taylor thing doesn't happen, let's say he wins the trials spot and, he's the guy and all of a sudden he's not just kind of floating out there as a potential person here, then it's probably one of the smoother transitions that we would have seen at such a big school. The culture would have been great. Like, I mean, think about all the culture stuff just from a couple years ago with Oklahoma State and all the repairing that they did, and some of the stuff that John Smith talked about, wanting to leave it in a better spot than it was just recently. And now to have this happen again, I mean, you see some of the athletes already actively, rallying around Coleman on Twitter and tweeting out, "This is my coach," and even some of the alumni, which again makes sense, right? Especially if it's alumni who were teammates of Coleman's. But this could have been super smooth, and it's getting messier and messier, it seems. So, not a good sign.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it just seems like, just to kind of reiterate what you guys were saying, it seemed like there was a plan in place with Coleman, leaving the head coaching job at a UNC school that had a lot of potential, right? And come out there, be the head associate at Oklahoma State, his alma mater, big, awesome dream job for him. And now I think no matter where direction Oklahoma State goes, I think there's going to be some animosity, right? If they do hire Coleman, there's going to be some, why were you guys doubting me? Why was this doubt? I think between the AD and, the alumni, the fan base, I think they're all kind of thinking differently now. And there's a little bit of, some button heads going on. And hopefully that blows over if Coleman is the guy or whoever is the guy, right? Whoever gets that job, I hope it blows over. But, it's you could see some animosity there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I completely agree. Right. And the wild part about that is we just watched John Smith's, retirement presser with him and the AD where they spoke about how great their relationship was and how much support he had from the athletic department. Obviously, hiring it's contentious. Nobody expected Oklahoma State to be this contentious because, it was John Smith who essentially wanted kind of a succession plan, call it what it is. Like, it's not I wouldn't say that last year Coleman coming in was a foregone conclusion, but it was certainly a thought, right? Where you were like, all right, 80% of me is thinking Coleman's the next guy, whether it's next year, 10 years, 20 years from now, he's the guy. You know what I mean? And that's what was so wild about it is so wild about this entire thing is we were all thinking that Coleman was the guy, and then there's a big halt in everything. And that halt was accusations of, different problems with money, with the RTC and with the club and the taxes. There's just like so much, red tape that came out of nowhere, right? So on top of it, when you really look at things and you're saying, okay, Coleman Scott has the backing from the community. You look at the donors, the donor money is going to be a big factor. But then you say, okay, well, he's David Taylor. What sort of backing can he bring with him from State College or from here? But, the whole thing about that is State College people are going to want to donate to State College. They're not going to. There's a very tribal part of people in wrestling where it's like we always want to make sure we're beating Iowa and Oklahoma State. That's kind of the holy trinity of wrestling. It's Iowa, it's Oklahoma State, it's Penn State right now. Those are the most storied programs. Even though, I mean, you do have Minnesota in there who has done some really awesome things in the history of it, as well as Iowa State with the things that Kale has accomplished there. And but those are like the three fruitful programs that you're like, those are the flagship. So as much money as you could potentially lose on not bringing in Coleman Scott, because, like I said, there are a lot of donors that back him. There are a lot of people in the community that want Coleman Scott, a Cowboy, to remain in place of the Cowboys. There's a guy in State College that can possibly be a different type of change than what Coleman would bring. Coleman did a really good job of bringing in the amount of change that he could bring at UNC when he was there. Let's call it what it is, though. There wasn't a high bar to do that before he came in, but he really raised the bar. He had, a multiple-time national champion. He had, more than just him in the finals, a number of AAs, and that was something that you hadn't seen at UNC for quite some time. So he did kind of change. He did really change things when he was at UNC. So you can kind of rest your hat on that. David Taylor brings in, for me, it's an X factor. If I'm just putting on the unbiased hat and full bias, like I am friends with Coleman. I'm friends with his family. I've known them for quite some time. But if you look at David Taylor, he does bring that X factor to things. Not say that Coleman doesn't, but it is very different. It's more so in Cowboy country, the Cowboy that you know. And they know Coleman. They know he's going to continue to do a lot of the things that John Smith did and implemented, along with the things that Coleman now knows as a head coach. You don't know what David Taylor's bringing, which is why I consider him to be the X factor. But it's got to be a piece of a championship culture that he was part of and that he has even fostered for himself as an Olympic and world champion, as well as an NCAA champion. So, like, I think that's what they're looking at when they're like, David Taylor could be the guy. And then when people are saying, well, what kind of experience does he have? How does he bring anything to the table? Well, it's the championship culture, I think, that they're really looking at.
There's certainly something to be said for that, but I mean, it's crazy to think that, if it's not like Coleman's not an Olympic bronze medalist, right? Like, it's not like he's an uncredentialed guy. He also has D1 head coaching success experience and is connected specifically. There's just too many reasons to hire Coleman, in my opinion. And there's too many unknowns, with David Taylor. Is having a successful club at the youth level the same thing as coaching Division I? No. There's a million differences. You're
the parents are crazier, the youth level.
Right? So I don't know. I think that David Taylor is going to be a really good coach. Don't get me wrong. At some point, turning down a really, really great option for a potentially better one, I think it's just so short-sighted. I mean, you're handing over Oklahoma State. That's a big job. So
huge.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part for me is what John has established and the level of success they've had and the expectations they have as a program. And you expect Coleman to kind of step in and continue that same approach and same thought process. So the idea of bringing in somebody from somebody from completely outside the program with no connections to Stillwater, no connections to Oklahoma State, no connections to coaching in college, and you're going to completely upset the entire program and what they've known for 25 plus years. What, based on what? And maybe that he'll be a great college coach, and he very well could be. But that's a huge risk to take when you have a great option right there already.
You think John retires if he thinks that there's a potential for this to happen?
Nope.
No.
I don't. I think he sticks around a little bit longer. if he doesn't think that it's going to be a smooth passing of the baton, even though when John, he didn't want his presser. He just wanted to say, "I'm retired. I'm done." Go to his farm, with the what hundreds of thousands of animals that he has, just kind of chill and hang out for a while, and just not be stressed with recruiting and NIL and literally being the CEO of one of the most storied companies in wrestling, right? So like you could see that he was just like, I feel good about where the program that I have built, where it is and where it's going. Because, I'm sure there were conversations of Coleman did a really good job of elevating. We went from 18th in 2023 to top 10 again in 2024. And John was in the room and probably thought me bringing in Coleman was not a direct correlation, but it had something to do with it. And that's probably what he felt like. And he felt, very good handing off the keys to the room and to the car to Coleman, essentially.
Yeah. Now, do you think? I'm sorry, go ahead, Austin.
No, I was going to say just maybe play devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, I just think maybe the athletic department really wants someone that is unknown, to see, because you like kind of like what you said, it's a smooth passing of the baton from John Smith to Coleman. Everything's going to be probably pretty much the same, the cowboy way, right? But where have they been? I mean, I'm not shitting on them here, obviously, right? But they haven't been beating Penn State. They haven't really been beating Iowa, so maybe they're thinking outside the box here, and it's if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing, Who has had that success? Who has been at this level? More recently, it's been David Taylor, Again, no shade to Coleman or anything like that, It's maybe they're just thinking about this differently and, making the decision harder than it is and really upsetting people here. So I don't know. I think it's maybe they're overthinking it kind of thing too, maybe. I don't know.
And the thing with it too is, would this be the same reaction to this possibility were this 3 years ago when there's all the fallout from Ferrari and all the shenanigans that were occurring there and the program was in a bad spot? Would we have the same reaction to somebody coming in from the outside and taking a different approach? Probably not, right? But they've worked so hard over the past few years to get that program back to where it was that it's weird to me to think that they want to upset that again when they're just getting back on track.
Yeah.
The same line of thought with bringing an outsider is like, would Oklahoma State hire Tom Brady to be their head football coach? It's the same thought process, right? He's a great player and has established himself as that, but he doesn't have coaching experience. So it's a mighty big key to turn over to somebody who's never been in that position.
Yeah, but that roast was good, though.
It was solid.
It was pretty solid. No, I just ultimately from my standpoint of like wanting to watch great wrestling and growing up and watching Oklahoma State be Oklahoma State, right? Like that was like the biggest thing for me. And then, watching my guy Jordan Oliver go and wear that orange singlet was huge for me, because I was not going to be a Division I wrestler, but it made me I was a fan of Oklahoma State before that, and then became an even bigger one when I watched my boy do that, right? So like you want to see them return to the top of the podium. You want to see them, be great, because having that sort of parity in wrestling has been amazing. Not to say that like, the NC States or the Michigans or anything else like that, not to say that hasn't been awesome to watch their ascension as well. It's just there's a bit of nostalgia, right? And especially when you look at who the perennial powerhouse teams have been in wrestling history. It is Oklahoma State, it's Iowa, and in the most recent history, it has been Penn State. It's just what it is. And you want to see those storied programs do well. So I hope that they get the right person in. I hope that anyone that they hire does a great job. I think that whether it is Coleman Scott or David Taylor, both those guys will do a very good job at coaching the next up and coming potential David Taylor or the next Coleman Scott, right? Like I think that will be amazing to watch. I just think that this whole thing has been a head scratcher, and it has been pretty wild to watch because I don't think we've ever had anything like this before. Nothing like this before with a head coaching job. Not even when Gable was leaving Iowa. Not even when Kale became the head coach at Iowa State and then went on to become the head coach. But like, we did not have this sort of soap opera. We did not have anything. And granted, social media wasn't what it was, back then, or even exist for some of those guys. But it's just been wild, minute by minute. Getting the messages and the conversations and the group texts and this, that, and whatever of everything that everybody is saying and the speculation. It's been insane, right? And the things that, the information that we're privy to is just like, what the hell's going on? And the fact that, like, I feel like a lot of people that are the closest to it, probably David and Coleman themselves, are still like, what the hell's going on? You can't get a grasp of it. And everybody wants a resolution. It's like, either give me the news that I'm the next head coach or give me the news that I'm not at this point, because I'm tired of the bullshit. And even from like our standpoint, give us the news of who the next head coach is. Give us something, because right now it's a lot of us throwing a lot of information out there, but not really having any sort of resolution. It's just trying to like say, hey, look, this is what's happening, right? This is what's going on. And that, I mean, we could get some sort of announcement as we're talking about this. You know what I mean? Like, that could literally be up on Twitter right now as we're talking about it, right? Like, very possible.
Oh my gosh, it is. No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I have gotten text messages today from people that are like, oh my God, can't believe David Taylor took it, just announced and everything else. And I'm not anywhere close to my computer. And I'm like, really? Like, is that really happening? And they're like, no, just bullshit. And I'm just like, I'm not panicking over here of like, code red, get the information out, but it's like, give me some sort of resolution. Give everybody some sort of resolution. So I don't know. I think it's going to be great no matter who they hire. Oklahoma State will be in good hands no matter who they hire. But then the other wrinkle to this, and it's the next topic I want to move on to, is the transfer portal. They hosted Wyatt Hendrickson, and Hendrickson was also at Minnesota, I think today or this week, but he was at Oklahoma State last week. And, I'm just like, how are they hosting one of the best heavyweight in the portal right now, one of the best wrestlers in the portal right now, when they don't even know who's going to be leading him? How's that even possible? And it's just like, if you're Oklahoma State, you really got to get this figured out, because if you don't get this figured out, there is a potential of you losing out on a lot of really great talent in the transfer portal. You have Kyle Parko that's in there. You have Alirez that's in there. Hendrickson is in there. Cooper Flynn is in there. Like, Barraclaw is in there, which Camamine, like, you want your shot at these guys. And while Coleman is doing his duties as an interim, hosting whoever wants to come and, and do a tour, Coleman was right there with Hendrickson, I'm told. Right there doing the head coaching thing, hosting him, answering his questions as much as he could, showing him around campus, all that. But you can't be definitive on what's going to happen next year if you don't know if you're even going to be there next year. So it's just like, Oklahoma State, you got to kind of shit or get off the pot here, because you're going to miss out on some really, really awesome talent that is currently in the transfer portal.
Or possibly lose dudes that are currently on your team.
Yes. Because honestly, and I mean, it could come down to that, where guys could say, I don't want to wrestle for David Taylor. I want to wrestle for a Cowboy. I came to Oklahoma State to wrestle for a Cowboy legend. Even though David Taylor is a wrestling legend at this point, they might not like the David Taylor way. They might, TB12 method ain't for everybody. You know what I mean? So like,
they might not like juice.
They might not be down for it. So, and the portal is still open for those guys, because they don't have a coach. They don't know who it's going to be. So like, there's a lot happening with coaching, but the transfer portal is absolutely booming. And, we spoke about Hendrickson, but Cam Amin is the one where I'm like, whoa. So I'm going to go to the Michigan man. How did you feel when you heard that this was happening? And what were your thoughts?
I mean, it was a surprise, obviously. I think obviously the history of the Amin family at Michigan and the recent and recent history as well as way back in the day. But super surprising. But at the same time, the more I thought about it and everything, I know he's finished up school there, so he's graduated. He has his degree from Michigan. So I don't know if it is a continued education piece where he's degree or something. He's got to go somewhere else to get what he wants to do there. Or maybe he just wants a change of scenery for his last year, I know he was pretty upset last season. It was kind of an up and down season, in and out of the lineup, whether it was injury related or something else. And then, finishing off the season in the blood round, losing to was it Hunter Garvin of Stanford. So, yeah, he was pretty angry coming off the mat. So I don't know if it had anything to do with that and just any animosity between coaching staff and himself, or just genuinely being like, you know what, this is it. This is the only time I'm really going to have a chance to check something else out and see a different area. He grew up, near Ann Arbor his whole life. Maybe it's just time for him to get out and check out and see what else is out there. So
Didn't he say in an interview that Oklahoma State, he almost went to Oklahoma State?
I feel like I did hear that sometime. He's probably not going to do that now since they just, everything we just talked about with the coaching staff changes, and B, they just picked up, 2 other 165s in Hamity and Fish. So, yeah, he's probably not going to go there. But yeah. I don't know where he goes, man. There's a lot of really good 165s that most teams have, So I don't know. It'll be.
I know 3 of the schools on the list.
Do you?
I do.
Let's hear it.
Iowa State, Mizzou, Virginia Tech.
Interesting.
What if he ends up back at Michigan with a sweet NIL deal? Like, that's the thing everyone's doing now.
Maybe he goes to Michigan State.
He recommits?
Yeah, recommits after the sweet 6-figure deal.
He just takes Saldate's singlet at Michigan State.
Yeah, right. There.
The old Michigan swap.
Yeah.
What if he goes to Central? No one's brought that up yet.
I mean, it is possible.
Ben Bennett, get on the phone.
He could get in probably.
I mean, do you think that,
Kevin can get in, a Michigan grad can get in.
Kevin's like, it's not that tough. I think.
You'll have fun,
6
buddy.
years there.
You did, yeah. 5.5.
Yeah. But like the Saldate Mantanona crisis in that bottleneck certainly kind of causes some issues, right? Like that was my first thought of like, okay, well, Saldate is coming in, Mantanona's not going to redshirt again, and he just had a pretty good U.S. Open. That's not a talent that you want sitting on the bench. You don't want Amin sitting on the bench either, but like, man, that's a hell of a bottleneck, and I don't think Amin wants to go up to, what is that, 84, 74?
Yeah, they wouldn't want to do that.
So that causes some issues for sure.
Mantanona's dynamic, man. That guy's going to be so good. I'm excited to see what he does last year or next year. But no, I mean, in general with Cam, like, so much fun watching him, being All-American his first 3 years there and continue to wrestle so well. Wherever he does end up, I'm happy for him, even if it is in Missouri. I'll be happy for him there. I liked Kansas City a lot.
Don't lie.
I mean, I think he fits. One
U of M to another,
Yeah, I think he fits there, right? Because I don't know. I mean, the thought is that O'Toole moves up to 74, so could definitely see him heading off to Missouri and filling in at 65. Because who else does Mizzou even have that would fill in at 65? I'm not sure. I'd have to look. It's not a roster I'm completely familiar with of who they have. Because Mizzou hasn't really been making a lot of noise lately. So you don't know their guys off the top of your head, at least at this point. But no, I mean, I feel like he could certainly fit right in at 65 if he does go to Mizzou and he has a NCAA champion in O'Toole to work with. I think you can only get better. So I would see that certainly as a feasible option for him.
Yeah, I like the Iowa State there too, with Metcalf being a Michigan guy originally. I'm sure they have some connections that way. I don't know who's 165 for Iowa State. I'm kind of drawing a blank here, but
I mean, Carr's done.
Carr's done, yeah. So he'd probably fill in nicely there. Pinheiro Johnson coming back, but I think he's 49, 57, right?
He's more of a 49, 57.
Yeah, he's smaller. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the other big talk is Alirez going into the portal, and I was very surprised by that. But then when you look at it, and I mean, when he went into the portal, everybody was talking about NIL this and NIL that, and I was like, let's not can we for once not go with the low hanging fruit, like let's not go for that, right? Like, let's think about this a little bit more objectively. The man just took an Olympic red shirt. He didn't accomplish his goals of making the Olympic team. When you don't accomplish your goals, it's going to force you to look at your training, especially when you're closer to a goal that you want to accomplish. He already accomplished the NCAA champion goal. Not to say that he wouldn't enjoy another one, but he already accomplished that, right? The next goal on his list is world and Olympic titles. It just is. And when you don't accomplish that, and I don't really know who's in the room outside of, maybe the coaches that are giving him the best looks at things, you probably want to be in a room, kind of like Penn State, not to say that that's like an option for him or anything else, but you want to be in a room kind of like Penn State, kind of like Michigan, where there's a number of guys around your weight that can beat the hell out of you and make you better. And, nothing against Northern Colorado, but like, you're not known for that. Until Alirez was literally their first national champion, right? And so like, it's not like they have this huge program where he's surrounded by guys that are going to continue to make him elevate. He's elevated essentially to the depths of becoming an NCAA champion, but now he wants to get past that. And he didn't make that happen this year. So he's going to look to reevaluate things. He's got 1 year left, and then he's truly onto the Olympic scene. So for me, that's what I was looking at and saying, yeah, the money might be a factor. He might be able to get more money at one of these other programs because, yes, Northern Colorado, I don't see money bags when you look at them. Certainly not. But there is another factor of wanting better partners, wanting different coaching, change of scenery. I mean, he's from the air, like get a different outlook on life, right? Like get away from that. I mean, hell, I can tell you right now, being around snow sucks. Hell, it's why I left Pennsylvania for Texas. So like, let's get a change of scenery here. So like, can we stop like looking at, NIL is ruining this and ruining that? And like, I get it. It's certainly there and guys should be able to take advantage of it. But there's a lot of times multiple reasons for why a guy wants to leave. Sometimes it's knee jerk. Sometimes it's like, shit, I got to get the hell out of here. I don't want to be, I didn't accomplish my goal. I need to go. I need to change something, right? Instead of staying the course, which used to be the thing. Guys would want to leave because they were like, I'm not winning here. I need to go somewhere I can win. Or I'm sitting on the bench here. I need to go somewhere where I'm not sitting on the bench. Now, every time somebody enters the transfer, it's like, fire up the Brinks truck. That's what he's looking for. It's like, no, like maybe he wants better partners. Maybe he wants to get better as well as make more money.
Yeah. I mean, he's been more than, loyal to Greeley, Colorado, and Northern Colorado throughout his whole career. If it was all about the money, he would have left years ago.
Years ago.
So, I think he's done an outstanding job representing for that city and for that program. And yeah, he just spent the last year training really hard to make this Olympic team. And I'm sure he just wants to get in a different room. We talk about iron sharpens iron, and we talk about all these things all the time. And
except in the last couple of years because now there's money involved.
Well, right. But I guess, I think it is important though. I think, wherever he does land, I mean, they're going to get a stud. They're going to get a guy who's immediately sliding in and is a national championship contender. I heard rumors he's going up to 49. But either way, wherever he ends up, I mean, he's dynamic. He's awesome. He's fun. Seems like a good dude. And yeah, he's going to be motivated to. I mean, I'm sure he's looking for some place with an RTC. He's looking for some place with freestyle coaching that's a little bit bigger than where he's coming from. So yeah, wherever he ends up, it's going to be a long-term commitment.
For sure. The only thing for me, and this is something that Willie and Fellers brought up when they talked, was it last week, is just like the NIL money that is getting, the numbers that are getting thrown around. I don't know if there's anything official out there, right? Like people are like, oh, there's a $500,000 deal on the table for Andrew Alirez. I can say that like Oklahoma State did not say that they would match that. I was literally told that. They're like the tweets saying that Oklahoma State said that they would match that. They're like, where the hell did that come from? Who said that? So I can say that I checked on and was kind of laughed at. Like, how would that happen, right? But like the money is just like insane. Where people are talking about how much Hendrickson is being offered. It's like, what is it? I think somebody said, Austin, might have been you, or it's just like, I'm hearing that it's like 200 to 500K, and then Alirez 500K, and it's just like, these are massive deals to these guys, massive deals, and it's life-changing money. So I don't fault them if leaving your program to go to another that's going to pay you that kind of money. I don't fault you, because when you're an adult, the salary is one of the first things you look at when applying for a job. It's a big deal. So I don't fault guys at all. But like I said, let's not like rest our hat on that's all it is. But there are some huge numbers being thrown around for these guys. But like the point that Fellers made, and him and I had talked on the phone, the day that him and Willie had their show, he's just, and he brought up a good point of like, you're shelling out this money to bring in a top recruit, but what about, say, they're saying 500K to Alirez. What about Drake Ayala, who's like, I was just in the NCAA finals last year, and I'm here, and I'm a born and bred Hawkeye, like been in Iowa, done everything that I possibly can for the state of Iowa, have only represented for the state of Iowa, and there's a guy that's going to come in and you're going to throw 500K at him. Like you literally have to re-recruit your guys every single year. But shit, those should be the first guys you're making phone calls to. Like, okay, transfer portal is awesome. Let's try and recruit the hell out of it. But like my 125 pounder just busted his ass in a absolutely crazy weight class to make the finals. He didn't win, but he kept our streak alive, won.
So really, you should be clawing some of that money back.
Exactly. There should be money in that man's pocket. Like let's figure out these NIL deals for the guys that are in your room grinding already. So, I mean, that's my gripe about it. I thought it was a great point where you're just like, you're Drake Ayala, and you're now, I mean, he's on his way to Turkey right now with Spencer Lee to be his partner. Let's make sure some of that gravy spills onto his plate. You know what I mean? Because if not, why should he stay if he's not being treated that way?
I'm just glad that those two made up,
I'm glad that they are now closer, for sure. There was a little rift in that. I mean, I'm a Falcons fan, and Kirk Cousins doesn't want to see his succession plan coming in. I think that's a little bit of what it was. The succession plan for Spencer was there a little bit too early. Everybody was already talking about what was going to happen after Spencer wins his fourth, and I think there's a little bit of contention there. That's pure speculation on my part, but that's what I can kind of equate it to, is the next guy coming in, you got to jump him into the gang, essentially. Yeah. So
human nature, yeah.
Yeah, like you got to give him a little bit of a beating, and I mean they certainly didn't get along. You could see that out on the mat, but they seem to be closer. And if when Spencer qualifies for the Olympics, I'm sure that Ayala will be the guy that goes with him. What are some of your guys' thoughts on these guys in the transfer portal? Where do we think that any of these other guys are going to end up, or any surprises of guys that you saw in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think just to kind of add on to the NIL stuff, like you said, some of these guys getting six figures, 250, 300,000. I'm just curious as to how sustainable that is, because you bring in a coach, you're probably not going to pay him that per year. I mean, you might if you're at a big school, right? But you're paying athletes this much, and then the coach is going to want at least that much, and then another athlete comes in. It's just the price is going to keep going up. So where's that limit at? My other point to that is these donors. They want to pay $500,000 for this guy to come in. What if this guy gets hurt for a season, loses his year of eligibility, he's out of red shirts, he's done. So there has to be some kind of, I don't know, consideration. I don't know what the word is, but something in place for if an injury happens or the kid quits, isn't eligible, something like that. That these donors aren't out all that money.
Yeah, I don't think it is
point.
sustainable. I really don't. I mean, and I think you're right. The price is going to keep going up. Yesterday's price is not today's price, right? Like it ain't going to happen that way. So it's going to continue to go up. I don't know how it is sustainable, right? And the only thing is like the wild part about it is that the wrestlers go to the NIL collectives and essentially the donors to negotiate that, right? Like the coaches can't be part of that. Allegedly, right? Like they're not supposed to be a part of that. When they are a part of that, it's an NCAA violation, everything else. The coaches have to go to the school and the administration to negotiate that. And that's way harder to do. Because if you're looking at, you're looking at Iowa's donors, you're looking at Oklahoma State's donors, you're looking at Penn State's donors, and it's like, and we'll get to it, Starocci certainly coming back, and the same day he put out that he's coming back, he puts on his Instagram story that he's the highest paid wrestler in the NCAA, right? Like there was a post, I think from Wrestler Grind or Wrestling Grind on Instagram, and he shares it to his story, and the post was who's the highest paid wrestler, and I used his picture, and he wrote on it, I am. So like it's me or something like that, right? So like the money is flowing, but it's flowing from these donors and the NIL collectives to the wrestlers. It's a completely different conversation when the coach has to go and say, listen, my wrestlers are getting paid more than I am for this year. Very much so different, and that normally doesn't happen in college. It doesn't happen in college sports. It's happening now, but there's just like two schools of thought with who you have to negotiate with, who you have to make a phone call with, right? So it's just wild. And you're right. I don't think that it is a sustainable model. You're looking at, just specifically in wrestling, you're looking at these huge, humongous deals. You look at some of these other sports, you're looking at the Caitlin Clarks who made a ton of money while she was at Iowa. You're looking at the Caleb Williams who was living in a high rise in LA. Like that's why they had to give Reggie Bush's freaking Heisman back. The quarterback you just lost was driving a G-Wagon and living in a high rise.
You telling me these kids aren't just investing their money?
They are.
The Dogecoin.
Yeah, like that's what it is in crypto.
Yeah,
throw your money around. But like that's the thing. Like I agree with you. I don't think that it's going to be sustainable, specifically in wrestling, because it's just like what the hell.
I was listening to a podcast the other day. I listened to a college basketball one just because I like the guys who do it. But anyway, they're talking about it too, and it's like, yeah, this model sucks, and you don't want to be the guy who's like, these kids shouldn't be getting paid, but also like, this sucks. It sucks for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's and at least with wrestling, like, with college basketball, at least on the men's side, there's so many one and dones, and there's so many transfer portal stuff that none of these teams can actually build chemistry, which you need in a team sport like that. So wrestling, like, we're at least not losing out on that aspect of it. But you still lose a lot of the fun that you have seeing the same guys put on the same singlets and go to battle with the same people year after year in their conferences, So that part you certainly miss out on, but at least we're not the only ones who think that the system is broken and
certainly broken.
Change.
Well, it was hard. I mean, I've been a part of a couple different RTCs and seeing the fundraising on that side. It's hard to have continuity with donors donating to a team program, let alone donors who are specifically donating to a single person. Like, at least with the team aspect, you're expecting return on team performance. But if you're shelling out, $250,000, $300,000 for one person to wrestle, I mean, what's the expectation? What are you getting back from that? And I mean, I don't think anybody had these numbers in mind when the NIL was finally approved. I don't think anybody actually thought people were going to start throwing millions of dollars at college athletes. I didn't expect that much. I was expecting maybe 100,000 as a top end kind of guy, but we're hearing 500,000, and that's just batshit crazy to me.
And
but,
cars,
yeah,
cars, and like it really is insane. It really
I gotta
is.
start
at least
training
the
again. I've
cars
still got
kind of make
eligibility.
sense though, because that can at least somewhat be an advertisement, and the donor can get something out of that, seeing they could put their dealership name on the back of that, and they can get a little advertising out of it. But most of these are individual, very well off donors, and they're not using the NIL for advertising like it was kind of intended. It's more just, I'm paying you to do your sport. It's not capitalizing on their image, it's capitalizing on their ability.
Yeah, but you know what has my name and image and likeness? Me. And I've got a wallet, and you can put money in it, and then I'll be here. So,
Yep.
Yeah,
You're absolutely right. And it's just like I said, I love the fact that now these athletes are getting paid because they're putting their bodies on the line for our enjoyment. They really are, and with the nastiness that has come with it is, obviously people are saying, they're buying teams and everything else. And then the fan aspect of it is the fans are like, well, this kid's making $500,000 and he needs to entertain me. So now I can be even more of an asshole. And it's just like, just stop. You know what I mean? Like, fans have always felt super entitled when it came to saying what they want to athletes and people that are out there to entertain. And it's just like, my contract doesn't give you, like, it doesn't make you more entitled to be a dick. Like, let's stop. So like, that's the part about it that I really hate. But there really needs to be something put in place. And I'm not saying there should be like a salary cap or anything else, but like, college sports are kind of gone from the way that we will remember them. They're becoming more pro every single day. I mean, even the college football game, they're adding the 2-minute warning this year, and then there's also going to be there's going to be speakers in the helmets. Like, they're trying to transition these athletes, and I can understand why, because you're seeing these athletes be so incredible and so high level to the point where they're transitioning very easily, not easily, but like, more easy into the pro side of things. So they're trying to do that. They're trying to make sure that those things mimic. But on the business side of it, you're losing out. You just are. I wouldn't say you're losing the camaraderie or anything else, but you really are losing out. And the smaller programs, as was it Madison, I think she wrote the article about like what it looks like for the smaller programs, and it sucks for them. It really does suck for them. But you could see it coming. You're like, oh, we can do this now, and everybody can know about it. Because I don't care who you are. I think we all know it was going on way before it had a name.
Yeah.
No.
Before, right? Like, before it was an envelope taped underneath the table. A nice little $100 handshake. There were all different kinds of ways that athletes were not able to, but received money.
I heard Austin made a bunch when he was wrestling with Drexel.
Yes.
Yes,
What?
with my degree that I got, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, along those points, not to beat a dead horse, but I loved Madison's article because I'm from the IWA. I cover small schools, and that's kind of my gripe with NIL. I love athletes getting paid. If they're graduating, they're eligible to transfer, great, get what you're worth. But I do have problems with bigger schools approaching smaller schools, and if you want to call it tampering, but nudging wrestlers and saying, hey, you could potentially make this much if you come to this school and go in the transfer portal, which it happens in all the sports, but I just hate to see the small schools getting taken advantage of, because we heard those stories of guys like John Milner up at App State kind of getting approached after NCAAs. He had another year left. It's like you said, you have to re-recruit your guys at these small schools just to keep them from hopping ship to a big school just because the money's calling. And then you get those a-hole fans are like, oh, these small schools just need a fundraise. And it's like, well, their reach is not like Mr. Penn State fan, that you guys have huge reach, huge donors. A small school doesn't have that, so it's literally impossible to do that. So it's just a narrow way of thinking, from when fans say that kind of stuff. It annoys me.
There's a really big difference between $100,000 and whatever Marty's Bar can give you for like signing some sort of advertising NIL thing,
yeah.
Like a million times different. So
yeah, and not only
you got
that,
a school like, you got a school like Lehigh here in Lehigh Valley, and they're not a big super powerhouse Power 5 conference, so they could compete wrestling wise with some of these big schools, but they just don't have the NIL. And wrote an article about it with talking to Coach Santoro and Coach Dillon and those guys, and they're doing everything they can for a program of Lehigh size, but it's nothing compared to these big schools, So I think it's a problem across the board that the rich get richer kind of thing,
Yeah, but I mean, through all of this, and all the things that we've just said about big school, small school, I'm going to right now give a shout out to Neil Arisman, because not one of his guys was in the transfer portal. And everyone going into NCAAs and coming out of NCAAs was like, ooh, that tree looks ripe for the picking. And not one piece of fruit came off of it. So, I mean, hat tip to, whatever he did to really build his program, sustain the guys that he has in his room. I think it was more a loyalty thing, and honestly, Neil Arisman being awesome, because he really is awesome, honestly. And with all the NIL talk, you heard all the rumblings, especially us, that when we were at NCAAs. Amazing job by Neil Arisman and what they're doing in Little Rock, because everyone was rumbling, everyone was looking around and saying, where's Bailey going to be next year? Where's Little going to be next year? They're going to be right back in Little Rock. We're in the same singlet again, wrestling for the same coach. And I feel like that's something that he can really rest his hat on, and he should certainly be proud of, because the transfer portal came and went, and his guys were just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to stay right where I'm at. Maybe down the line when it's their final year and they're getting money thrown at them and it's life-changing money for a year, and they're like, listen, I've done everything that I've wanted to do. I'm going to go off and do this and accept that money. Great. More power to you. You should, right? But I would also love to see you stay right there in Little Rock with Neil Arisman, and not just get him, he got his first AAs this year, get him his first NCAA champion as well.
I think there is one thing and this is not to detract from the Little Rock aspect of it, because more power to them, and it's awesome. I'm glad they kept people, but with all the NIL talk, I think we should, and it's not going to happen often, right? Like, you're not going to be able to just shout out everybody for not transferring. Like, good job, all you guys who didn't go anywhere, But I think there is still a lot of loyalty and a lot of integrity and a lot of character that we don't see or know about or think about because there's no movement, I know I've talked to a couple of different coaches recently and about very specific wrestlers who have stuck along with their programs the whole time and still have a lot of loyalty there. So, it's a good thing to know is out there.
Yeah, for sure. Also in the transfer portal, and I'm rocking the Arizona State today. They have two guys in the transfer portal with Parco and Colton Schultz.
Mm-hmm.
Parco, not really sure where he's going to end up. I know there were like rumblings of Iowa. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't be surprised if Colton Schultz doesn't go anywhere. I
He's
don't
not going
think
to Michigan. That'd
I
be weird.
I
That
mean,
argument's weird.
is it? Because that was my argument, honestly. Like I was like, listen, him going to Michigan checks all the boxes for him training wise.
It totally does, but it seems so weird that you would have the two guys training together. Like,
Yeah.
Why?
like on
And all
paper,
the-
sure.
It's Nittany Lion Wrestling Club for you.
That's exactly what I'm
In
saying.
every weight class.
Yeah,
like-
good point.
They like the amount of guys that Jordan Burroughs had to wrestle at the Olympic trials they were all from the same school.
Yeah, hey,
Every single
maybe.
one of them. So that's why I'm like, everybody that, you can say it's weird, everything else, but like on the Greco side of it, W cap, all those guys,
Yeah.
we have two very good Greco heavyweights that before they were true, I don't want to say rivals, but for lack of a better term, rivals, they train together. And when they go to the OTC, they train together. There's no other big behemoth looking men that we have that are going to handle Colton Schultz and Adam Kuhn. Not going to happen. So while I
I'm right
understand,
here, Ryan. You don't have to
I
say
know,
that.
I know,
Or a live grizzly bear.
right? Right? Or a live grizzly bear. But like honestly, like think about like we talk all the time about iron sharpens iron. All the time. Clonch, you said it at the beginning of this. But like, why not? Like I that's why I'm like, everybody's like, well, yeah, Penn State does it. And I think a guy tweeted back at me and he was like, yeah, Penn State does it, but is that possible to duplicate? Why the hell is it not? How is it not possible to duplicate? Before Penn State had multiple NCAA champions, Oklahoma State had multiple NCAA champions, and that sure didn't happen because they were all working out together. They all had partners in that room that made them better.
Theoretically, yes. But I think in practice, I don't think it happens. I don't know. I think some other rooms, it might be Minnesota. I mean, they've got a ton of great high-level heavyweights in there. They've got a guy in Gable Stevenson who I assume will be back wrestling soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another option. I don't know. The Michigan one, again, does make sense theoretically, but I don't know that it would make sense in practice.
Yeah, I mean, that was just my thought because if he's gonna get ready for another folk style season, which we know he focuses more on Greco than he does on folk style, it's called what it is. If he's gonna do that though, he's got Mason Paris, who's literally right there in the room.
Yep.
And then I don't know if Davison is sticking around. I don't know what
he's
his
sticking around.
Yeah, like he's got Davison who's there, another guy who's just in the NCAA finals, and then he's got Adam Kuhn who was in the NCAA finals, who can get him ready for the folk style season as well as the Greco season, right? Like even though they are going to butt heads, and they're in the same room and they're going to be competing for the same spot, so be it. So be it. I mean, certainly, I get it. It didn't work at Iowa. We saw the succession plan after succession plan after succession plan happen there at Iowa when it came to the lightweights. But I think the temperament that Colton Schultz and Adam Kuhn have, it could work. Also because we do have places like the OTC where you could see Adam Kuhn go when it's time to really get ready for a trials where he's going to hit Colton Schultz again. Right? Like, so that was my thought of these guys can wrestle together all season. But then when it comes down to really, truly get ready to be competitors, watch film on each other, work with my respective coach on what I need to do in order to beat my teammate, then we can do that, So, even though David Taylor and Aaron Brooks didn't work together over the last couple of years, they worked together at one point, but they stopped that after a while. There are certain guys in that room that I'm sure do not work together, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's going to be familiarity. And on the Greco side of things, it's not like we have, it sucks to say, but it's not like we have like this jackpot of guys that can get every single one of them ready, where it can be a Penn State aspect of saying, okay, Aaron Brooks, you're not going to work with David Taylor anymore. David Taylor, you're not going to work with Aaron Brooks anymore. We don't have that luxury on the Greco side. So the two best guys might as well just link up and make each other better, because ultimately all it's going to result in is more medals for us. But again, I don't see that happening. I think he's going to stay put in Arizona, staying in Tempe. He'll be back in the lineup next year. That is just my thought, just from the texts and calls that I've gotten. Parko, on the other
Schultz's
hand,
aunt coming off the top rope though against Richie Figs.
yeah, that's going to make things a little weird. It's going to make things a little weird. I mean, Figs' tweet is going to make it a little weird, but then, Colton's aunt, she didn't really help the cause, So, but no, I love
Colton has any issues with Figs.
Yeah,
Popping him like a pit bull.
and that's the thing is heavyweights and lightweights, that 125 and heavyweight relationship. There's a rift there now. Like,
Yeah.
that's Robin Big forever. Not happening anymore when you look at this. So I don't know. We talked about NIL. We talked about transfer portal, Oklahoma State. The only thing that I want to really get to is Carter Starocci saying that, he's going for the fistful of rings here, and coming back. And I think that there is something to his interview of him saying he's coming back at 197, potentially going to be at 197. He's got the frame to be a hell of a lot bigger, and him and Aaron are certainly close, and I'm sure Aaron will be right there to help him get ready for things and be a true 197. He wrestled a very good match against Hidley at the trials. Hidley ultimately got the win, but I mean, that was an undersized Carter Starocci wrestling Trent Hidley.
On one leg, too.
So, like, I think that there could be something to it where, there's something that's going to be happening with Carter Starocci moving up to 197 and doing possibly some damage.
I just don't believe him anymore. I don't believe him. He said he wasn't coming back, so I kept saying, taking him at his word, and then now he's coming back. He said he was dropping down in weight, and then he didn't because he got bigger. How much bigger did he get for him to get to 197?
What, his shaft or his body?
Yeah, his shaft. That's what I'm saying, man. Was it 20 pounds now?
That's a hell of a jump.
Yeah.
At least you didn't say it was a hell of a pole. That could have been worse.
I need some vitamins, whatever he's eating. But no, I mean, yeah, it's exciting. I'd love to see a 5-time, national champ. I think that's awesome. I thought it was kind of weird that you wouldn't have that option and walk away from it like he kept saying he was going to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm happy to see him back. I'm happy to see him get after it and try to do it. If it is 197, that is a weight that cleared out a bit with obviously Brooks and Hidley and I think the returning guys are Buchanan and Cardenas. Sloan's gone. Elam, if he's healthy, is certainly a bit of a problem. And then Little and Beard. But yeah, if he's back, he's probably the favorite in the Big Ten at least. And then you're just going to, though, I don't know. Cardenas is there too. I don't know. He's the favorite because he's Starocci and he's a 4-time national champion. So generally when those guys come back, they should be the favorites. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly agree with it. I think he bulks up, eats whatever the hell he wants, lifts crazy weight, and comes in and does some damage.
Do we know why he's 197 and not 184? And does he still plan to do MMA afterwards, or is that still kind of talk?
Sorry, I'm getting text messages right now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I don't know why 197 instead of 184. When he had his interview, the Flow interview that he did, he said that Kale brought it up. So, very well could see him at 197.
Maybe Kale just thinks that your last year has to be at 197.
Maybe.
Isn't that what he did?
Maybe he's just like, listen,
And Brooks.
my guys are
gonna
going to
do
rule
this.
197. That's just how it is.
Bo Nickel was 97, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They just want to have fun and weigh 197 pounds.
Yeah.
And shave our heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but no, I think he does well. I think I honestly can't wait to see a fully double X large Carter Starocci out on the mat, looking more agile, because I'm sure his knee will be completely repaired. And he even said, I was surprised to see him wear a brace at the trials, because he said in an interview that he was wrestling without a brace. But I think
He says lots of things.
he did. He certainly does. He says lots of things. Some things that don't agree with him saying. But he said he was wrestling without a brace. So I was like, oh, he's going to be out there and not have a brace on his knee. But then he was out there and he had a brace on his knee, which in the room, again, and we said this after NCAAs, in the room, every single one of those guys has your well-being at heart, and none of them is trying to hurt you. When you get out there, no one gives a shit anymore. Especially the first guy he came up against was Pat Downey. 0 F's given when you're wrestling Downey. So, yeah. So we'll certainly see what a 197-pound Carter Starocci, if he goes there, what that looks like, as well as some of the other guys in their lineup. Because I know he mentioned who else? Levi Haynes doesn't want to cut weight anymore. He said that, and that might have been a slip, maybe not something that he should have let out, but he said it. So maybe even Levi Haynes is up in weight, up at 65, and maybe Facundo is up at 84, and Messenbrink is up at 74, right? Maybe that's what's happening, and why he would come back at 97. That's my only thought, because Facundo obviously isn't going to redshirt again. Messenbrink can't redshirt again. Levi Haynes does have a red shirt. Mm-hmm. So he could, if he wanted to, get a little bit bigger and stronger and fill in 165. But, I mean, he doesn't have to. But if he doesn't want to cut weight anymore, then there you go. So,
well, and they've also got Josh Barr, who could slide in at 84 too. So they've, must be nice.
Yeah, it's nice to have all that money in your wallet, right? And by money I mean the wealth of very eligible championship caliber guys in your room.
I heard Levi Haynes might go to Oklahoma State with David Taylor, though.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a Magic man. He's a M2 guy. And Kasich.
Listen,
could stir things up there.
Could stir things up. Speaking of which, I mean, let's dive into it. I'm hearing that it is David Taylor right now. Getting some text messages and messages that I'm seeing that it could be him. So, and none of those are coming from Oklahoma State. I will say that. So I can't confirm it, but it's the speculation right now that it is David Taylor becoming a head coach for the first time. So,
it's gonna look weird.
It is gonna look weird if that really does get announced. As we're recording this, I'm getting text messages and stuff. That's what I meant before when I was saying I'm getting some different messages that are coming in, as we all are, in our
just confirmed. I'm not allowed to say that.
Our Twitter, but I can edit that out. But yeah, I mean that's what I wouldn't say it's confirmed until it's announced, right? But
do we know who he would even bring in with him? Would he bring someone from Oklahoma State in there?
I doubt it.
And with this Aaron Brooks allegedly thing with Adderall stuff going on, I'm not sure how true that is, but
that does not hold much water to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I'm just saying, if David Taylor is the guy now because of that, this is just weird timing.
Let's pivot to that, right? Before we get into who would David bring with him if it does turn out to him being the coach. The Aaron Brooks thing is very weird because the people that I have talked to, they're like, I've never heard of of USADA or UWW giving a guy a waiver and then allowing him to wrestle in the trials, and like it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't add up. So like I don't know where that story is coming from. I know there were specifically 2 accounts on Twitter that were talking about it, which I'm going to call a spade here. Not everything that those 2 accounts say, specifically the one, you're just like, what the hell? The other one has said some true things. He has said some false things. He has said some things that he has deleted. So, you know, I don't do with that what you will. But like, I don't know how much merit that holds because it just doesn't add up. It really does not add up. And specifically, if that happened within the Penn State camp and David Taylor didn't know about it, I'd be very surprised, one. If it did happen and David Taylor did know about it, I would be very shocked if he did not contest it very soon after the trials and say, hold on, wait a second, what the hell's going on over there, right? And like, Aaron Brooks is an amazing kid. If he has to take Adderall and he has a prescription for it and everything else, fine with it. Everybody has to take some sort of medicine. You know, we're not all okay. You know what I mean? Like everybody has whatever they need. So I have zero qualms about it. Nor do I think Aaron Brooks is a terrible person because of that. Or any of the guys that we've had that have popped. I don't think they're terrible people because they have popped for anything. But let's call a spade here. If that were true, he would have been on the list of people that come out that, you know, piss hot, right? Like, just what it like. Like I said, at no point ever have things been kept under wraps for a year, and then you allow him to try and make the Olympic team. Doesn't add up to me. Now,
USADA and Water are not big fans of gray area. It's kind of a it is or it isn't. If he popped, then he loses, you know, whatever he got at U23, and then starts his sanction from there. There's not a well, maybe we'll let you try this and we'll see what happens with the lawyers, and you know, arbitration happens after the suspension.
Yep.
And we've seen several people go through the arbitration for the same thing, for therapeutic use exemptions, and it's always after a suspension. So if there is a suspension, I think it would have been announced. And if there's a waiver, then that's something that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with presumably David Taylor taking this job, you would think if this was a true thing, you know, he'd be maybe staying back to train a little more. You know, I feel like maybe this doesn't hold any weight because he is taking this job. He kind of knows his Olympic path is done with, you know, so this is his next chapter. Just kind of, you know, putting 2 things together here.
Yeah, which is wild, right? Because a couple weeks ago, you felt like you had enough in the tank to continue competing and potentially winning another Olympic gold. And, you know, so if you do this, and on top of that, it's just signing with Nike, a deal that goes until 2028 for you. Ultimately, going to Oklahoma State, you can continue that. You can continue to be part of whatever they have planned. If he is going to be the next head coach. But there's just so many different factors, right? And, you know, that's why I don't think that the Aaron Brooks thing really holds any water, because it's very out of character for UWW and USADA to not put that information out there and for him not to get some sort of suspension, right? Jordan Oliver popped multiple times for weed. You know, I think, well, one might have been Adderall as well.
Yeah, I heard that one was.
One was Adderall.
He was subscribed. He was prescribed for that
one.
Wasn't he?
First one. And that went to arbitration.
Yeah.
And still was a year suspension. The second one was for cannabinoids.
Yeah. So like, okay. And my take on it is I honestly I would much rather see a guy smoke weed than pop a bunch of pills when you're hurting, to be completely honest. Fully truthful.
I was trying to figure out how those are performance enhancing. You know, like,
They aren't.
Adderall I can understand just because it is a stimulant. It's,
Yeah. And the focus that it
it can
gives.
be used. Yeah, the focus and the weight cutting advantage that it could give you theoretically. I know that it actually does, but I mean, in theory, it's a stimulant. It's an amphetamine.
Yeah. And it's a kind of a diuretic, like as you're saying. Like it does give you, you know, it is kind of an appetite suppressant, right? So like it is a little bit different. But man, especially if obviously anyone can get a prescription for anything. Let's call it what it is. But like if a doctor is giving you a prescription for something, they're putting their license on the line. You know, so it's just very different. You know, I don't know. I don't but again, I don't think any of these allegations really hold any weight. I don't know why a test that happened at 2023 Worlds would have any merit this year, at least coming out at this point. You know, we have certainly seen, I think, what happened with Tervel, where Tervel was awarded his bronze medal afterwards because it came out that a guy that he ended up wrestling, pissed hot, whatever. And that was like multiple years later, just because of their testing system. But like at Worlds and in a lot of these places, even at the trials, you're going, even at NCAAs, Aaron Brooks was walking into his interview talking about, well, I still have to go pee. Like they're testing these guys immediately, right? So like, why in the world would it take that long for this to come out? You know, so I don't know. It just to me, it just doesn't really hold any weight. I don't really see that it's really going to be a thing. If it is, holy shit. And I'll eat crow completely. I'll dress it up with, you know, a side salad and everything else, but I don't see it happening. I really don't.
Yeah.
But we can speculate here on this David Taylor thing. If David Taylor really is the guy, if that's, you know, people are saying it, you know, that David Taylor is the guy, getting text messages and stuff from multiple angles. That's what everybody is hearing. Who does he bring with him? And when everything kind of came out, my first guess was maybe Varner goes. You know, Varner's a guy who is not on the coaching staff. He's part of the RTC. So, you know, he's not part of that. He's, you know, each one of those guys has a core and has a job and a role, you know, and you can see that the roles of that coaching staff are completely divided up as well as they should be, like no other. But I think Varner possibly goes.
I bet Kennedy goes with him too.
Yeah, I would think Kennedy for sure.
Kennedy
His
as
brother-in-law,
well.
isn't it?
It's his brother-in-law. So I could see that. I don't see any of the core three outside of, you know, Casey Cunningham, who was another one of the guys that Oklahoma State tried to get. I don't see any of those guys. Obviously, Kale's not going anywhere. You know, neither of the other two are going anywhere. But yeah, I could see possibly Varner, Kennedy making that move. I don't really know. You know, there's not really any other guys that are in that room that I could see making that trip or a guy that he would look at. There is a guy. What's that?
I was going to say, does he extend an olive branch out to Coleman Scott? Stay on and be the associate.
I do not know about that. I do not know about that. I don't know. But
That'd be tough for Coleman.
There is a guy at Penn, Austin, that might be on staff that might want to make that trip. What do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Yeah, because he was just out there allegedly in that state.
Well, he was interviewing
that
at
one.
Oklahoma.
Not that guy.
Oh, you're thinking of the other one,
I am thinking of the other guy.
the associate head coach. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
he's been there at Penn for a while, knows the ropes. One of the best recruiters, according to Willie. Also, with Columbia open up the road a little bit here, Ivy League to Ivy League, that might be more his style. But yeah, that's an interesting thought as well.
I mean, it'd be a big jump, but I mean, he's a Penn State guy.
Yeah.
He's a Penn State guy, it's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, why not? Why not? Right. So, and with the most recent developments of things getting handed off to, Matt Valenti, him stepping in above the guys that have been there for a while,
Yeah.
you got to look at it, So, shit, maybe we just figured out, who David Taylor's coaching staff could be if he does take this job at Oklahoma State.
Probably
Yeah,
before
you
he
should
even
pay us for
knows.
consulting.
Yeah.
What does a David Taylor coached Oklahoma State Cowboy wrestling team look like?
A lot of ankle picks.
Yeah.
Probably not cutting as much weight.
Certainly not.
Sucking down 4 weight classes.
Yeah.
Certainly not cutting as much weight. Don't see that happening. I see high pace, I see heavy hands. Not to say that Oklahoma State doesn't have that already, but there was a lot more wrestling outside, a lot more slickness that we saw from Dayton with an inside trip or a low single or something like that. So things are
top wrestling too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cradles.
Yeah.
Yeah, cradles and special funks and scrambles. That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, so I think it'll be different. It'll certainly be different if it's happening. So yeah, we'll see. Nothing has been official. It's just been talk as of right now. Haven't seen anything. But I mean, Willie is currently tweeting that an announcement is probably coming tonight, which, wow. That's kind of surprising that it would come this late at night. And there's a lot of kind of upset people right now in the Twitter sphere.
Did you see that? What Seth just said? That's intriguing.
Not putting that one out there.
No, but that's very interesting.
Extremely. Leaving that one alone. But yeah. And looks like Willie and Bosch are going to go live here in just a second or something. But yeah, this is, like I said this when we first started. How long ago? An hour and a half ago. It could happen tonight and come out all tonight. So yeah, there were a lot of developments throughout this entire day, and for it all to culminate at potentially 9:00 at night Central Time, that's big. That's pretty crazy for it to happen at this moment right now. So expect a lot of shakeup. We will certainly, once it is official, we'll come back maybe next week, maybe once some of the smoke clears and things start to happen. Because again, some of the things to kind of remember is these guys have a transfer portal that is open still. And I was told originally that it's like 10 days after your coach leaves, but I think when they name a new head coach, they can then decide whether they're going to stay or go. So I don't know. I could be fuzzy on the rules. I could be messing it up, but I thought like when the new coach is named, you get a chance to say, I'm going to the portal. I'm not, whatever else. So we'll certainly see, but yeah, it looks like it's going to be David Taylor. And this will be out. We're recording this on Monday night. So this will be out on Tuesday. And most likely by that time, the news will have broken if it's coming tonight. But yeah, crazy. Very crazy, honestly, to think that everything was going in the favor of Coleman Scott for about a week, and they very well could have announced it in that time frame if they would have put it out before the trials. But their thinking was, we'll put it out after the trials. No rush. We've got our guy. Everything else, and everything changes. So very different. What are you guys thinking right now about this entire thing?
Coleman to Hofstra.
Yeah, right.
Put it in the books.
Is that wishful thinking for you?
Or Columbia. Yeah, I mean, who knows? There's 2 openings right now.
He
Blue.
He could go to the RTC. Remember, Espo left the RTC, and I haven't seen them fill that spot yet.
I thought they did.
I mean, maybe I missed it, but I hadn't seen them fill that
I
spot.
thought they promoted Guerrero. No, was that? Am I off in that?
No, Guerrero was at Oklahoma State.
Oh, he wasn't with the RTC. Okay, yeah.
He was with their RTC at Oklahoma State. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm crazy, but I hadn't seen
anybody yet. You're right.
I hadn't seen anything come out in that sense. So I think that's probably the biggest possibility for him. And on the David Taylor front, my thought was that if he wasn't taking it, was because he was going to compete in another quad, maybe do a couple years under Cale and be the successor at Penn State. That was my original thought. That was what I was honestly thinking. He's got to deal with Nike until 2028. He goes this entire next quad. I understand he is 33, but like, I think his body is probably a little bit beat up. He has had the surgery on the knee, and he has had some, been dinged up throughout the years. You don't wrestle that long and not get an injury. But like, that was my thought. He didn't make it this year. Maybe he bumps up to 92, wrestles at Worlds this year, and then comes back down to 86 for the Olympics. I was thinking he bumps up to 92 for the next 3 years, and then 2028 back down to 86, gives it another shot. If it doesn't happen then, he goes into coaching and does the assistant coach job, get a little bit of experience under his belt, and then go into it. But hell, I mean, if you're being offered this job, it's really hard not to say yes, especially when you're not sure if you're going to compete again.
Will he try to ingratiate himself with the Oklahoma State faithful by competing for world medals while he is the head coach?
I don't know. Dangerous game.
Will he wear vests?
Kind of have to, don't you?
So
No, I think he's
that's
more.
rule.
I think
It's
he's
in the
more of a
contract.
suit guy. Honestly, I think he's more of a suit guy. I think he'll be suit, quarter zip kind of a guy. Is what I think happens.
Will Kendra be able to open a juice restaurant in Stillwater?
I was told that
asking, yeah.
I was told that they were expanding in State College. That they were.
They did. They were building
Yeah.
a new one when we were at trials.
Yeah.
They just bought a farm as a family too, or something, right? I mean,
Good thing is
obviously
there's farmland in Oklahoma.
there's a lot of
so-
farms out in Oklahoma. That's not the issue, but a lot of paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, who knows? Who knows what happens? But let's see if it was announced yet. I haven't seen anything yet. I don't know. But yeah, Willie's about to go live, or at least he put that out like 20 minutes ago, so they might be live right now. I don't know. But yeah, there's. Sorry, just seeing different things, reading different things here. But no, who knows? We'll certainly see. Like I said, by the time this comes out, it could be official that it is David Taylor's job. He is the next head coach at Oklahoma State. So we'll certainly see. It's going to be interesting. completely new regime in Cowboy country. Hopefully, the Cowboy faithful embrace David Taylor. I understand that like there was a divide between what donors wanted and what some wrestlers wanted and what administration wanted and what some other fans wanted. But ultimately, you know, if they got the guy that they feel is the right guy, embrace what he brings. Because he, like Coleman, he brings a wealth of knowledge, honestly. And we'll see what kind of recruiter he is. We'll see what kind of guys he can bring in and kind of coaching staff he will have and what he will do. Hopefully he, ingratiates himself to the Cowboy faithful, honestly, and does some really great things, honestly. That's ultimately what you want to see happen no matter who they announce as the coach. Shit, like there could be a complete curveball and they throw a Coleman Scott graphic up and we're like, oh, okay, so they were just testing the rumor mill apparently. So I don't know. But like I said, at this point, by the time this is out, we will know who the next head coach of Oklahoma State is.